The following episode will feature Brandon Thor. Brandon Thor is the CEO of Thor Metals Group. He holds a law degree and an MBA from the University of Southern California. He also managed a portfolio of over $200 million in assets as the Senior Vice President at Advantage Gold. Mr. Thor comes across as a very knowledgeable and down-to-earth guest, and I appreciated my time that I spent with him. Please keep in mind that none of what I say or Mr. Thor says is specific financial advice, and you should always seek the help of a licensed professional for your specific needs. With that being said,
welcome to the Atwell Podcast.
So, Mr. Thor, first of all, the name. That is an awesome name, Brandon Thor. It's very I thought, I was like, there's no way this guy's name is actually Thor. I was like looking at Thor metal groups, and I went to your website and I was like, man, like that is so catchy. So from a marketing perspective, your last name really hit the nail on the head, right?
Yeah, it's funny you say that, and because we're based in Los Angeles, and because precious metals is generally a conservative investment, so a lot of my clients are out of state. Bible Belt, they call it guns, God, and gold. So it's basically a lot of them don't get to see me in person. So I always joke that it's good that I do a lot of the business on the phone, because when you see me in person, as you can see a little bit, I'm not Chris Hemsworth, but because my dad's big, but my mom's like a 5'1" Sicilian. So I was right in the middle. But the reason why, besides the name being a pretty cool name, people like it, was also because I noticed in our industry that nobody puts their last name on the company. And in the financial sector or the legal sector, it's very important to kind of stake your reputation. Every law firm, every accounting firm, even banks, JP Morgan, that was a guy, but in the gold business, you notice that it's like Patriot Gold, Benjamin Franklin Gold, American Bald Eagle, but nobody is putting their name or their reputation. So I felt, what, this is a good way to stake my credibility on this, and to actually, let people know that, I'll put my reputation behind it. So that's part of the strategy.
Yeah, and going into a business by putting your name, I did the same thing, the Atwell Podcast LLC. Obviously different industries, but you are holding yourself more accountable, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Because if you think about it, these companies, and this is a dirty little secret in our industry, some of them are foreign owned, and the ones that are selling these exotic coins are really overcharging and stuff. They don't really want people to be able to know who they are, or to be able to broadcast their name and their business practices on the internet. So they kind of hide behind these facades. Like, again, so if your podcasts are crap, excuse my language, everybody knows. Everybody knows that you're the guy. If we're not delivering metal, or we're sending chocolate with gold wrapping, you know where to find me. I'm a real person. Very easy to look me up and stuff. So I just feel that, in the era of AI, where you could be talking to a robot for all credibility and people being able to use their intuition to make educated decisions, especially in sales, is going to be more important than ever, because we generally use our gut, right? We kind of get a feel for somebody. Hey, that guy's a scumbag, or that guy's a straight shooter. But when you're dealing with a lot of automation and AI, you can't do that. So any opportunity that you can to show people credibility, or show them that you're going to take accountability, I think that it's even more amplified as far as the importance of doing so in today's day and age.
Yeah. And just to add to your point, I agree 100%. And a funny thing is, I took a Google certificate program in marketing, and something that really caught my eye, something that just correlates sort of to what you were saying, is in marketing, basically people want more natural pictures. They don't want all the AI and crap like that. And when I found that out, I had a little eBay store. I was goofing off, I sold like 7 or 8 things. I sold like 1,000 things after I took natural pictures and natural lighting. And people want real. And so kudos to you for recognizing that in the beginning. So before we get down too far down the rabbit hole, why don't you tell me about yourself, your background, maybe your education, and your job before you started your own company?
Sure. So I was born on a sultry night. No, so I was I grew up in Pasadena, California.
Hmm.
Two parents, a very Catholic household. I played baseball my whole life. All the way actually even in college. And I was always a very good student, right? So that
Hmm.
was what I excelled in. But I felt like when you're a good student, and I don't know what other people's experiences are, they kind of just force you into the traditional good student stuff, right? So I
Yeah.
went to college at USC, and then the natural progression was to go to law school and be a lawyer. But that wasn't for me. But I still got my law degree, of course, because that's I do what I kind of told.
Oh
So
yeah.
anyway, so I went to USC. I got my bachelor's in business. Then I went to USC Law School. I got my law degree, and then I also got my MBA there as well.
Hmm.
So once I got this litany of degrees, it was like, well, what do I do with them? I'm a
Hmm.
professional student. And so my first job was I was an investment banker at Guggenheim Partners. You might know the name because they own the Los Angeles Dodgers. So
Yeah.
I worked
Wow.
there. Yeah. So I did that. And then I was like, man, I don't like being chained to a desk. I don't like the structure of having a boss in this hierarchy. I'm more of a creative
Hmm.
thinker. And
Yeah.
so I took a total 180 and became a sports agent. So,
Hmm.
I had a lot of connections in the baseball world. I played
Wow.
baseball at a pretty high level. So I was hired at Beverly Hills Sports Council, which actually they used to be prominent. They've kind of fallen off, but they were Barry Bonds' agent and
Yeah.
a couple of big time guys. So I worked as an agent, and then that was more like, hey, I loved it. I know that I'm good at having an autonomous job and owning,
Hmm.
taking ownership of my work.
Hmm.
But man, as you know, with baseball contracts, it takes 6, 7 years for these guys to make any money. So, if I'm getting commission on that, it was tough, in your
Yeah.
late 20s living in Los Angeles. It was like, okay, that road's a bit long. And I had a friend from business school that was in hard assets, and he's like, this is a real interesting industry. It's lucrative. There's not is the competition like there is in banking and things. And man, these are good investments. So, he
Hmm.
got me into it. He was going to start his own shop. He knew I was good in sales. So, I was one of the incepting brokers there. And that was my first introduction to actually physical investment grade gold and silver. So I worked
Hmm.
for that company. I was, again, one of the incepting brokers, worked my way up to the SVP. I got poached by a larger company, which is arguably probably the largest dealer in the country. I was a senior director there, and then I pivoted from there to start Thor Metals Group. So that's from point A to point B in about 5 minutes. So
Yeah,
here
yeah.
we are.
Wow. Yeah. And just it's kind of funny because you said you had a law degree and business background. That's what my background is. I've ended up being the boss of every single job I've ever worked. It's just but in law is basically the way I remember it, the four learning styles is abstract conceptualization. So, and as it relates to gold and silver market, you're basically looking at things at a bigger, larger worldview by being
Yeah.
involved in that. Whereas if you're doing stocks, depending on what you're in, if you're not day trading like a degenerate, then you're basically looking really heavy into financial reports. It's very analytical thinking. And that's basically on the opposite side of the spectrum. You have abstract conceptualization and analytical thinking. And it's okay to be somewhat analytical, but for people who want to start businesses, I would say that those people are wanting to see more broad-based ideas. So I just found your business background really interesting because I'm somewhat similar. Bachelor's in business administration. I have a certificate from Harvard. And I'm going to the University of Tennessee for my master's here in the fall. So
Oh, congratulations. Yeah, I mean, look at to your point. I don't regret, even though I'm not practicing law at the moment, I don't regret my legal background because it's a different way of thinking. It really taught me how to see the world differently. When I read a letter, even a business email, I see like, okay, there's exposure there, that should be so anyways, it's a
mhm,
just it really trains your mind. It's almost like calculus trains your mind in a way of thinking as well. But as far as the business, starting this business, what I found was, and this is really interesting, and you probably would understand this will resonate with you. gold, I call it the secret investment hiding in plain sight because,
Hmm.
precious metals, even though they've been around for 5,000 years, I mean, it's mentioned in the
Hmm.
Bible 430 times. For some,
Just pause for just for a second because I had this on my notes. A lot of people do not know that. It's literally in Revelation where it literally says to buy gold tried in the fire and you will become rich. That's literally what it says. So
yeah.
when you were in the beginning of the conversation, you had already picked up on sort of the conservative side, the right wing side, and you had already mentioned the Bible Belt, and I was like, man, I'm really glad because it made it really easy to draw that correlation. So you brought it up before me. That's kind of tough. I gotta like write it off. Sorry. Go ahead.
But even though that is the case, right? So it's an old investment. It's a very proven investment. It's something that will always be there. I mean, if it isn't, man, you're the unluckiest human in the world. If for some reason you're born in a time when gold isn't. But besides that, for some reason there's a disconnect because everybody that has had a girlfriend or a wife knows gold is valuable. I mean, and they have
Yeah.
no problem shelling out the money for that stuff. Because they know, hey, it's worth it. But for some reason, there's a disconnect between that and investing in gold. And when you think about it, it makes sense because think about it. If people really understood investing in gold, it's a direct competitor against the banking system, right? Because at least in my opinion, it seems to be a lot better option than having your money, on a computer screen with some banking institution that can go under and God knows, too big to fail in 2008 and things like that. There's what's called counterparty risk. Whereas with gold, it's like you control it, man, and it's yours, and if the dollar weakens, they print money or whatever else, it just takes more of those weakened dollars to buy that same ounce of gold. So you're also preserving your wealth. So, anyways, it's a direct competitor against $1 trillion industry. It's also a direct competitor against Wall Street. Wall Street makes their money like a degenerate, trading your stock positions and stuff, and then charging you, assets under management fees. Okay, so another $1 trillion industry that gold threatens. And then, of course, it's a direct, not competitor, but it's a direct referendum against irresponsible government action. Because think about it, when you print a bunch of dollars and you amass a lot of debt, the dollar weakens. Well, how do you see that? Well, you see it at the grocery store when the cost of eggs is double what it was 4 years ago, and we're not running out of chickens. So you see it in the form of inflation. And guess what? Gold holds it to account because you can't print gold, right? So if you have the government and the banking industry and Wall Street not wanting you to invest in it, well, what's going to happen? Well, what's going to happen is they're going to try to suppress any news information about it. They're going to try to keep you from having readily available education. And so that's why a 5,000-year-old investment that everybody knows is valuable, less than 1% of people actually invest in. That's why it's this secret investment hiding in plain sight. And the industry is this very much a niche industry, even though, again, gold is just a global asset. So anyways, just a bunch of rambling at this point, but a bunch of really
No, no,
interesting things there.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
absolutely.
yeah.
The gold is really surprising to me that you're pushing gold, and it makes me have more confidence in you as a business. And I'll tell you the specific reason why. Because the premiums on silver are so much higher. And for the guys who are trying to just get rich, the JM Bullions, the Atmax, these big companies, when silver prices come down, I've seen it many times where silver prices come down, guys who are looking to buy maybe, a tube or two of buffaloes or some generic stuff, they see prices come down. What's JM Bullion do? They just raise the premium, so they're never losing. And mostly, I've never really, honestly to God, met somebody who just pushed gold other than silver. So I guess my question would be, and you'll forgive me, I'm kind of going through my head with this, but what is the profit margins on gold from a dealer standpoint? I know that they're a lot less than silver, but why gold instead of silver for you?
Well, here's the thing. Let me let me correct you on one thing because you are right.
Sure.
Silver is a lot easier to mark up a premium and not have the investor or the consumer see it as much
Hmm.
because you can raise silver 15% and it's like a dollar something. If you raise gold 15%, it's going to be a couple $100, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's a lot easier to see those premiums. But here's the thing, I don't push necessarily gold over silver because I'm going to charge the same with my gold products and my silver products. What I do is I've identified what this industry does that's unfair, and what it does that's unfair is they take advantage of the fact that this is a secret investment hiding in plain sight. That there's not like Yahoo Gold or Yahoo Silver where they can learn about it. And what they do is they have these coins produced just for them. And I mean, you rattled off two big companies, so I'm sure you're no stranger to this. And so they have these coins produced just for them. They're called proprietary coins, but they're like made by mints. So like the Royal Canadian Mint will make a Wolverine or a wild horse, right? So it will
Mhm.
look like it's a government minted coin, but it's only made for that one company. So what does that do? Well, it makes
I
it
didn't know
impossible.
that.
Yeah, so think about it. Whenever you see like oh, this is the Royal Canadian Mint and it's some weird animal, it's not the maple leaf, it's not,
Mhm.
or it's not the eagle, it's not something that's globally recognized. It's always going to
Yeah.
be some proprietary coin. And what that does is it creates a situation where the client cannot price check it. Because if I'm overcharging you for an American Eagle, you can find in about a half a second that you're paying too much. You just Google search it,
Yeah.
boom, boom, boom. Okay, that's way too much, right? But
Mhm.
if I have a coin just made directly for me and I have a silver tongue salesman, and they Google it, and because it's made for me, they're not going to see it, maybe a couple other places that bought it, on the secondary market. And then I say, oh, the reason you're not seeing it is because it's a premium metal. It's sold off on the institutional level. I've heard it
Mhm.
all. I mean, but my point
Yeah.
is that you don't have that same tool in your toolbox of price checking it. And so they're able to get these proprietary coins and just mark the heck up out of them. And it's very unfair to the investor. So the investor who comes in with the right idea for buying gold and silver, to protect their wealth and all the reasons why gold and silver really work
Mhm.
for you. But they just don't know enough, and it's dangerous. So it's a predatory practice, and that's one of the main things that I do with my company is we only sell common bullion. So rounds, bars, eagles, maple leaves, things that are just produced globally that you can sell in
Mhm.
Paris as quickly as you can sell it in Philadelphia. But I mean, look at with the silver. Here's what because you're going to fill in half the story if you're dealing with a company that is a little bit predatory. But here's the other part of the equation that is not predatory, but is just very interesting that you kind of touched on, which is you have what's known as spot price, right? And that's
Mhm.
hey, what's gold at today? What's silver at today?
Yeah,
Now,
sure.
what spot price is, it's a futures contract on the COMEX exchange. Now, it's supposed to represent the raw physical metal, but in the case of silver, JP Morgan has been screwing around with that thing for about 15 years. They own
Mhm.
90% of those contracts, so they manipulate the price. So
Yeah.
sometimes when you see a big spread between spot and market, sometimes that's the company ripping you off, but sometimes it's because the actual organic supply and demand market for silver is a lot more than that spot price because it's being manipulated
Mhm.
by JP Morgan, because they're shorting it or doing whatever. Like right now, I don't know if you're aware, but if you have a global reach, you could buy silver here and you can sell it for $6 more in China, just risk free. Yeah. On the
Yeah.
Shanghai
I never
exchange,
knew that.
silver. Yeah, because listen, we are manipulating our silver. Like JP Morgan and these big banks, they short it and they make a ton of money shorting it. And so these paper contracts, which are not supposed to be leveraged, turn out to be very much leveraged. So there's about
Oh, no.
400 contracts for every 1 ounce of silver. Now I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but that's what you need to know is yes, sometimes silver does have high premiums, but other times it's just that the physical asset, it has a supply and demand market that points to silver being a lot more valuable than what that
Mhm.
paper spot price is. Now, if you pay a fair price, though, commiserate with, like, let's say, for example, when SVB Bank collapsed, the Silver
Mhm.
Eagle was trading for $38 and the spot price of silver was $24. Okay. But
Mhm.
if you were to sell me a Silver Eagle, I would have paid you 37 and change. So it wasn't the premium, it was just physical silver was a lot more in demand than what that manipulated
Yeah.
spot price was. So again, it all just goes back to, hey, you have this secret investment where there's not readily available education, so you're relying on someone like myself to be truthful and honest with you,
Mhm.
to make sure that you make a right decision. But it also points to the fact that you want the physical over, GLD or some fun because hey, they can manipulate that. They
Mhm.
can't manipulate the physical asset.
Right. Well, I've definitely known, and just to add to what you were saying with the differences of actual price compared to real prices, COVID-19, when that happened, the silver price even in the secondary market, even if you were buying from your buddy, was way different than what you were seeing through the exchanges. But you said something that all these years I did not know, but it makes perfect sense. I actually have a 1.5 ounce Canadian goose or something like that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
and it's got the queen on the other side,
Yeah.
and it makes perfect sense. I never thought about that, but it's definitely not being sold at other places. So you're right. It does make it hard to fact check or not fact check, to price check. That's really, man, I'm sorry I got hung up on that because I was like, man, I've probably got $500 worth of stuff sitting at home that I've overpaid for.
No, hey man, it's no fault of your own. I mean, it's literally because look at you're left in the dark. You don't have a North Star guiding you,
Mhm.
and you got a broker telling you that this is the best thing since sliced bread. And hey, you
Mhm.
got to trust somebody, right? You know, if I'm
Yeah,
buying something that if I don't know anything about computers, if somebody says why I'm paying $500 more because it makes up some processor, sure, okay, sounds good to me.
yeah.
So like, so yeah, so I mean, they take advantage of that, but it's funny, and you'll also notice the weights are always weird, right? Because they want to make it hard for
Mhm.
you to do the math too. So it will be like the 3/4 ounce because it's close enough to an ounce where people psychologically are like, okay, that's a good deal. Even though if they put it to an
Yeah.
ounce, they're like, Jesus, that's not a good deal at all. So it's always
Yeah,
going to be
you're
some
paying
funky
$7
weight.
over.
Exactly, like 1.25 ounces, 1.5, 0.75. It's always
Mhm.
going to be some funky weight. But yeah,
Mhm.
it's funny that because that is the whole premise of how some of these companies really make a big margin is anyone reasonable wouldn't think that a government mint would make a coin for a Southern California gold company like my company or one of my competitors,
Mhm.
but they will. And that
Yeah.
and that just that one little fact is the whole thing. That's the whole gamut.
Yeah. And I do collect some kind of unique pieces that are more collectible than they are for the weight. Of course, you got the weight, but for an example, and you've seen these, I'm sure, like these two
Yeah,
ounce. Yeah,
they're
and these are
beautiful.
pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool. Yeah.
good for collecting or something. But this would be considered 100 gram.
Yeah.
Um,
That's the stuff. That's investment grade. So that it's called bullion. Bullion, it actually can be a coin or a bar. But what bullion means is what you're paying for is the weight, purity, quality in the market. Nothing to do because it fell off a pirate ship or because it was on a king's crown. That's the
mhm,
numismatic stuff. Which hey, that's a fun market, and some of that stuff's really valuable. But again, it's contingent on you finding a collector willing to pay, kind of like art. But with
mhm,
that bar that you showed me, you can flip that thing,
yeah,
down the street at a pawn shop or wherever. I mean, they'll,
right.
it's just the silver. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the British stuff. I like Britannia's. That's my favorite thing to collect. So that's why I picked this one up. Beautiful. It's in an essay. So is this something that maybe not that particular thing, but is that something that your company would be selling?
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
So Britannia's, you hit that on the head. So that's the globally recognized version of the metal that the British Mint produces. So we would sell
Mhm,
that. Now the British Mint also produces like these guineas and these other stuff, and now those are the
mhm,
proprietary stuff. Now if somebody really wants it, we can get it. But again, it's
sure.
it's a rip. So yeah, the Britannias, the kangaroo is with the Australian Mint. That's their globally recognized metal. So yeah, I mean that's what we're going to recommend, and that's what we're going to push, as opposed to these companies that are going to push you on the premium
Mhm,
stuff. But hey, whatever you want, we can get. We all sell the same pasta sauce, and we all have the same wholesalers. But it's
yeah.
just a matter of who wants to do business fair and who wants to be more of a predatory company.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've definitely seen some of the bigger companies overpriced, and sometimes you'll get deals. I've been investing long enough to where I remember where you could buy the first 20 ounces at spot,
That's
right? And
awesome.
those times were lost. I probably bought 2,000 ounces like that. I would just set up a guest account, use a different credit card, and just keep going to like $17 an ounce.
Oh
So,
man. You made out like a
yeah,
bandit. Well, it's so funny because I've been doing this for a long time. 8, 9 years ago, if you told me the spot price of silver, spot price of gold, I could tell you the price of an eagle or a bar within pennies, right? But
right.
now it's not because companies are getting greedier. It's because literally the physical market is supply and demand, and the paper market's the paper market, and there's just more and more of a separation. Like
Mhm.
like there is a lot more demand for metals than what the price indicates, what that spot price indicates, even now.
Oh,
So even now we're kind of in price discovery mode because we could be charging a lot higher. I mean, you go online to even one of these big, like JM Bullion, and try to type in, like, even like for like a fractional eagle, try to type in 1,000 of them. Watch, they'll say we only have 350 or something. So my point is that they literally, even with the prices that stuff's at, which is separated from spot, they're literally, it's not an equilibrium of supply and demand. They will run out of the stuff at the price it's at right now. So we're still in price discovery mode, and it just shows you that the physical is definitely what you want to be in, and the other stuff is where the banks can screw around and do all the manipulative things that the Wall Street likes to do.
yeah. So silver's up over $1 today. Last I looked, as I left the house, is that still the case?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So and you know what's driving metals right now.
No, but it's on the list. Go for it.
Okay. So basically, look, it was kind of a wave here, right? So when Trump got elected, all right, because we sell a conservative investment, I don't know why it's so conservative. Because it's not like they check if you're a Democrat or Republican before gold goes up, but for some
Yeah.
reason, that's my clientele. When Trump got elected, there was a lot of hope, a lot of excitement, and so if you notice, right after the election, metals prices dipped, right? Okay,
Mhm.
now they've been starting to climb because what I think people are realizing is, there's a difference between fixing something and disappearing something, right? So
Mhm.
under Biden, the last 4 years, we quadrupled the money supply. We're 37 trillion in debt. Now, can we change our policies and make sure that we have, a pro-business type of policy, better business policies, less bureaucracy? Yes. Can we erase the fact that we've quadrupled the supply of dollars? No. So I think people are coming to the realization that, look at, man, even with Trump in office or whoever's in office, we're still going to have to face some tough times because of the mistakes that we made. We still have
Mhm.
consequences for being so reckless for the last 15 years. And so what you're noticing is people are getting more and more scared. I mean, there was a lot of money invested in the stock market based on AI. And when China came out with DeepSeek, and now it's
Mhm.
like throwing everyone on its head because people are like, holy crap, we have a competitor here. And that was like 15 trillion in the market. So people are just scared. And when people are scared, they run to safe havens. Gold and silver are big safe havens. So I
Yeah.
guess to simplify it, that's why you're seeing
Yeah.
prices go up.
Well, personally, so I live in West Virginia, which basically for the last 3 elections, we have not had one county in the entire state vote blue. Zero.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're extremely conservative, right? I don't know of a single person personally that doesn't own a gun in their home, including
Yeah.
myself. I'm not saying that to get into overly politics, but you're 100% right. But the thing that people don't realize, especially where I live at, as compared probably to California, is that every single president has used more money than what they have brought in, right?
Yeah.
And I used to remember even the interest on the debt is almost as much or more than what we're even bringing in taxes. So that's going to be putting upward price pressure on gold and silver forever, in my opinion, because the gold and silver have to keep basically their buying power. If you look at the buying
Yeah.
power of silver and gold 100 years ago, they're around the same, right, as what they are
Yeah.
today. They haven't lost any money when you look at it as compared to buying power.
Yeah, no, I mean it's that's you hit the nail on the head. I mean, and there's a kind of a couple fun things, which is one is in 1920 you could buy a nice men's designer suit for a 1 ounce gold coin. It had a $20 face value. It's called a St. Gaudens. Okay, now
Yeah.
today, 100 years later, with gold, trading almost 3,000 an ounce, you could get a pretty darn nice suit. But $20, you can't get
Hmm.
dress socks. So think
Yeah.
about it. 100 years, you can buy the exact same. Your standard of living does not change. If your grandpa put his wealth in gold and buried it, you can dig it up and you can live the same way he lived. If he
Hmm.
put it in dollars, you dig it up, man, you're going to be on the street begging. Because
Yeah,
the
really.
dollar's lost 99% of its value. So
Mhm.
that's what the argument is. Hey, if we're so used to just putting our paychecks even direct deposit in bank and not thinking like we're choosing to store our wealth in the dollar. We're choosing to store it in loans backed by the United States government, which is what the dollar is. And when they print money, guess what? That's an invisible hand coming in and taking value from you because they're diluting the value of the dollar. So there's all these things when they amass debt. Well, guess what? They're because the dollar is backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government. Well, the credibility goes down when you're 37 trillion in debt. So again, your dollar goes down. So when you choose to store your wealth in dollars, which people don't think it's a choice, they just think, hey, that's the way it's always been done. Then that's what you subject yourself to. Whereas with gold and silver, you can't print it. It can't, you can't rack up a lot of debt. It's an intrinsic valued object, and I think that's why, especially now, it's majorly important to be looking into this as opposed to dollars, because we've never been as irresponsible as we are now. I mean, we had a $3 trillion debt ceiling for freaking 40 years. It just wasn't until the war in Iraq that thing started climbing, and now it's, geez, like you just hit on the head again. The interest on the debt is almost unmanageable. So it's a different world, man.
Yeah. And one of the questions I had here that we've already sort of talked about a little bit is let me see here. What about paper, silver, or gold? Would you recommend anybody just go the paper route, or your recommendation, just from talking to you very shortly here, would probably be physical? Am I correct?
You would be now taking a step away from my self-interest, because I sell physical, obviously. So if someone went the
Sure.
paper route, that's not my business. But let me tell you what I would see as a good use for paper, where I think paper is superior to physical. If you are a day trader, or you want to make short-term bets on the price of gold and silver and move fluidly in and out of the market, I think that GLD, SLV, some of these paper funds and stuff, those could be a pretty good mechanism to use. In fact, probably a superior one. But if you have wealth that you want to park into metals for 2, 3, 5 years, for a long-term thing, then yeah, there's no counter argument. Physical is the way to go. From
Yeah.
a performance standpoint, to the fact that there's no counterparty risk. Like these funds are owned by banks. It's just every way you look, physical is going to beat the paper. But if you are planning on short-term trading, then the paper probably would be your best bet.
The only negative that I've ever seen personally is I had an actual family member who wanted to go and get a loan from the bank, and he was looking at collateral. So he has physical silver, right? And he had like 4 or 5,000 ounces, so a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
And he brings up there to the bank and he says, "Hey, listen, like, you guys can put this in a safety deposit box, whatever you want to do." Of course, in my head, I was like, "This ain't gonna work." But like, I see what he's going for here, and they would not loan against it. They would not take it. They
Now,
want it paper only for collateral.
here's where I think I can add a lot of value, because I come from that world and I understand how that world works. See, if your cousin, if he still needs to do it, by the way, I could help him, because basically, if he would have set up like storage at Brinks or the Delaware Depository, where he has an account, he has an official account where there's a holding statement, he can collateralize that. In fact, they'll even collateralize it. They have a finance. Some of these depositories have a finance arm that will collateralize loan, against the metal held there on site. So there's ways to do it. It's just he can't do it and just say, "Hey, I have 5,000 ounces of silver. Want me to send you a photo and lend me the money?" But there is ways to collateralize physical.
Yeah, I had no clue. That's really, really awesome. And actually, I have a couple people in my mind that comes to my mind that I know is holding physical, that I don't know if they're looking for loans, but I didn't even know that was an option. So, I mean, obviously, the more you talk to people, the more that you learn. One thing on your website was, and just keep in mind, I know absolutely nothing at all about this topic, and that is IRAs. So your website was talking about gold IRAs. What is that, and how does that work?
Sure. It's a great question. So, when you enter the working world, you generally, you have 401k if you work for a big corporation, when you start, and they'll like match and stuff, and then you get your statement. Or if you set up your own retirement account, it's an IRA, right? The benefit is that you're able to write it off, so you don't pay taxes on that money, right? So it's pre-tax
Mhm.
money, and it stays in the retirement account system. Now, here's the deal. The problem is, you're pretty much constrained. Like if you have a 401k, you're constrained to a series of options like mutual
Hmm.
funds, or you could be in money market. But you're always constrained to just paper assets. So there's a specific IRA called a self-directed, and this only became something that was legal about 40 years ago in the late 90s. Ron Paul was actually the politician that pushed for it. Okay, so
Oh,
Ron
sorry,
Paul,
sorry. He's my favorite politician of all time. Rob
me
Paul.
too. I love him.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh man,
absolutely.
we're
Love
friends
him.
now. We're friends now. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no. So he pushed for it, and so hey, look at this is people's money. Let them invest in what they want to. If they want to buy physical real estate or physical metals, they should be able to do that. So
Mhm.
you set up what's called a self-directed IRA. So again, it is a gold IRA, but you can invest in more than just gold. It just is an IRA that gives you the ability to own hard assets in addition to paper assets, whereas Fidelity
Mhm.
or Morgan Stanley won't. Okay, so you set up that. You roll over funds from your existing IRA. We have a full service IRA department. We'll help you do all that. And then you acquire the metal. Okay. The only difference is instead of it shipping directly to you, it's just going to ship to Brinks or Delaware, one of these IRA approved depositories, because Uncle Sam needs to know where it is. Same reason why you don't have your IRA money in your checking account. So
Right.
it'll ship there. It goes through an inspection, and then it will just sit there until you want to liquidate it, or you can always take possession of it, and then you'll just get a 1099 like you took a distribution out of your retirement plan. So that's how that
But they
works.
still get the physical. Like if they request to hold, you still own physical gold,
Exactly.
and you can
Yes.
have it. There'll probably be like like a penalty or something if you take it out too soon, maybe, or something along those
Yeah,
lines.
it behaves exactly like the IRA, from penalties to the rules of the whole thing. But it is physical metal. Like you will own 122 gold maple leaves, or bars, or whatever, and those are
Mhm.
yours. You can actually drive to the depository and view them. In fact, I have clients that have done that. They're yours.
Sure.
You can take possession of them.
Mhm.
So it's not like a piece of paper. It's not a fund or anything like that. And then, when you take possession of it, again, it's just a distribution. So then at the end of the year, they'll just send you a 1099 reflecting, hey, you took out 5, gold American Eagles, gold's trading at whatever, and so they'll send you the value, and you have to pay taxes on it. So, but you
Right.
you own the asset. It's not a paper. It's not leveraged. It's not a fund. It's
Mhm.
it's almost like a safety deposit box while it's in the IRA.
Right. And you're only paying taxes on the value if it goes up, right? I mean,
Well,
penalties would be separate, but
yeah, I mean, yeah, and no, and there's actually a loophole. This is not the reason to do it, but here's the
Mhm.
deal. And we touched on this earlier. So because it's a physical asset and it doesn't have a standardized price, like, if you own Nike stock, it's not a different price at Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan, it's
Right, sure.
70 bucks or whatever it is, right? But physical
Mhm.
metal, hey, Britannia's, bars, Eagles, there's a market for all of that stuff, right?
Mhm.
So it creates a situation where, well, what do you value it at for taxes? So what the IRS allows them to do is just to flat value it at spot, no matter what it is. So there's some techniques that you can use to actually take more value out than what would be on the 1099. One is to buy fractional weights. Like you can buy fractional weight silver. When you do the math, it will add up to like 60 something bucks an ounce. Now it's not you're getting ripped off. That's just what that fractional round or fractional
Yeah,
bar,
sure, sure.
is, right?
Mhm.
But your 1099 is just going to read spot multiplied by ounces. So, let's say you do all fractional, whatever, you could have $100,000 in there. You take possession of it, and your 1099 reads 50. So you're literally have $50,000 in metal value that's not reflected on your distribution. So it's a pretty
Yeah.
nice loophole.
Yeah,
Now
that is really neat.
and the reason is because, hey, they need some standardized price to give them guidance on, the custodian has to report that. And the reason that the IRS isn't staying up late crying because of the lost tax revenue is because out of like the 35 trillion in the retirement account system, it's like 0.00001% metal. So it's like a crumb of a crumb of a crumb. But for you or for me, it's not. I mean, it's significant, but
Right, sure.
it's not. They're not losing out on a lot of revenue. But yeah, but it's a nice loophole.
Yeah, yeah. And I would obviously recommend people to do their own due diligence when it comes to like making like
Yes,
financial
yeah,
decisions on like through IRAs. For me personally, I'd rather just have the physical because if something happens, and this maybe I hate to say it, the West Virginia in me, but if SHTF happens,
yeah.
it's in my hand, nobody else is getting a hold of it or whatever. But I guess my biggest question, and the question that I hear so many people say, it isn't keeping it safe, because where I'm from, like I said earlier, everybody has their own means of protecting their home, but actually exiting their position in physical gold and silver. I think that's a big thing. It's like, where in the heck am I going to find, 10 grand is very little. You can't retire on, no matter who you are.
Yeah.
But finding a guy to meet you in a parking lot at Walmart to sell 10 grand worth of gold to, um, sorry, I dropped
So
something there.
but let me cover two things you said. The first is, yeah, the thing about having it in hand, right? And it's very important, because people start thinking, because it's a physical asset, they say, well, I want it in my hand. It's very important. That's not a function of owning gold and silver. That's a function of the IRA system. If you're worried about that, then you should just get out of the IRA.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
got to
sure.
play by the rules of it. So a big enough wave will sink all boats. But owning physical metal as opposed to just some number on a computer screen at Fidelity, I think is a lot safer position. But
Mhm.
again, you're in the IRA system regardless. So it's more just like, hey, I'm in the IRA system. Would I rather have stocks or physical gold and silver? I get that I can't have it in hand, but I also can't have the stocks in hand. So that shouldn't be one of my deciding factors. But to your point, let me go into the liquidity of it, because this is something that is people have a misconception of a lot. So number one, metals are incredibly liquid. It's not like selling a house. It's not like trying to shop around and put costs or something. Our company, we guarantee buyback. So if you buy it from us, if you buy $1 million in metals, you call me, you can sell it whenever you want. We'll pay you market value, and it's good as done. So we guarantee it. So if you're our client, so you always have a built-in buyer. Now, if we go out of business, or if a meteor hits our company, the metal we sell, because we only sell like universally recognized bullion, then you always can find a buyer. It's so liquid. You just call any dealer, they'll liquidate it. Any of the big companies. So trust me, it's not like selling a house, or it's not like selling like a piece of art or something like that. It's a very fluid, liquid market if you own the right thing. Now if you have these gooses, or these stuff like that's where you run into trouble, and that's why you want to get stuff that is globally credible.
Yeah. And honestly, I have had trouble trying to sell some really niche things, I guess you could say. Recently, I have a buddy, funny enough, out in California. He owns a company called Leaf and Loot, Matt Thompson, wonderful friend of mine. And he sells some silver and gold. And so usually whenever I'm ready to exit, if I want to just get some more cash in my hand, whatever, I give him a call. And but recently he turned down, I had the goose, and I had uh it was a Fellowship of the Rings Gandalf coin. So it had this
Okay.
huge premium on it. I think I won it in a raffle or something, but it has a huge premium. He's like, man, I don't want to touch that, because I think partially he just didn't want to offend me, be like, man, I can't give you $47 for this, the
Yeah.
well, what's showing on JM or whatever. I can do like 32 or something. And, so some of that kind of stuff, it seems like eBay stuff. But I think a lot of people who get into silver, what I've noticed is when you first want to buy silver, especially not so much gold, because not everybody has the money for, couple, 2, 3 grand, whatever it is an ounce. Um, but for silver, people want to get into stuff that they look, and it's all about the picture, right? I
Yeah.
saw guys paying $50 for 1 ounce coins, but on the backside of it, it had somebody who was naked or something, And I'm like, first of all, do you want to be trying to sell that? Second of all, do you really want to, will you go wait 50 years for, to get back to even on the spot price, so,
Yeah. And, and,
um,
and listen, and one of the things that we do here is, hey, once clients understand the goose and understand how the game works, we'll help them swap. Like, so we can go on the wholesale market and say, look, all right, you're going to take a little bit of a bath on this because you overpaid, but we can even it out by giving you a wholesale price on, the right metal. And it's something that we do is somewhat as a courtesy. We charge about 1%, just kind of a labor fee for transacting it. But
yeah,
then
Sure.
but what it does is it starts a relationship. It gives we do them a solid, and then they end up, because what I found is metal buyers never stop buying metal. I mean, they'll buy the rest of their life. So you earn them as a client, man. It's a client for life. So you do something solid for them, then again, and so that's not a revenue stream for us, but it's a good way of us earning clients. Is we'll take their gooses, we'll take their whatever, and we'll say, look, you got to rip out the band-aid. We'll shop it around. We'll make sure you get the best wholesale price. We're not going to take anything ourselves, and then we'll flip you into Eagles or flip you into Britannias or bars or whatever. So now moving forward, you're not going to have a problem ever selling it. You can sell it to whoever, whenever, wherever.
Yeah. I think that, and I could be wrong about this, but I think, as you said, that people will continue buying metals rest of their life. I think that might be more of a political thing, like a conservative thing. The reason I say that is because, like you said, most people who are into this are conservative clientele. Well, when you look at the gun industry, nobody I know owns one gun. They own 50, 100, 1,000, 2,000. I mean, just a ridiculously huge horde. But it's like every year, it's just like a thing that they do. So
Yeah.
keeping that community really happy and making relationships is really important. I got a question for you though, on as it pertains to the conservative community. So you're headquartered in California. Have you had any pushback from the conservatives? You know, looking at you
Yeah.
like as
Yeah.
you see what I'm trying to get at
Yeah,
here.
no, and listen, the answer is I don't know why, but all the national metals companies not only are in Southern California, we're all within a mile of each other. They call it the Golden Triangle. It's just it's just the way it is, man. And I always tell them, look, I was born in Pasadena. It's a very conservative enclave. I was born and raised
Mhm.
here. If I moved here from Kansas, then judge away. But hey, man, this is where my family is, and in California's just gotten more and more radical. I mean, when I was little, it was always liberal leaning, but it wasn't anything like it is today. I mean, for God's sakes, Ronald Reagan was the governor of California, so
Oh yeah, yeah.
you can see where it's gone. But yeah, you're to your point. That is something where you cringe. Hey, where are you guys located? So I'll always give a qualifier like, look, don't hold it against me, but we're right by the airport in Los Angeles. But that's just happens to be where the industry is.
Yeah. Well, most of Northern California is still farmland conservative. And California, I like to think of things from an economic standpoint. It's just my background, I guess. I used to trade stocks for like 5 years. Um, and I pretty much read every single book that, I'm sitting at home reading Milton Friedman for fun. So from an economic standpoint, it makes sense why there's so much industry out in California to me, because it was like if California was its own country, it would be top
Yeah.
10 economy in the world.
Oh, big time. Yeah. I mean, and it's I mean, for some reason, I don't know why the metals industry just formed out here, but think about it. I mean, it's very secretive investment to begin with. So it's like it's a very niche industry, but
Mhm,
you have your coin shops in West Virginia, you have them all over, but we're talking about the big national dealers like my company, shoot, A-Mark, which is an $18 billion market cap wholesaler, is in El Segundo, like right down, I can run there, if I wanted to
mhm.
exercise. So I mean, it's just that's where the metals are, man.
Yeah. So are you more or less, I'm going to get into some questions more specific to your company. Are you more or less drop shipping, or are you holding physical yourself as a company?
We're drop shipping. I mean, we don't hold your money, we don't hold your metals by default. Now, if you do not want to hold the metal, if you would feel more comfortable with it at a
Mhm,
depository, we do have relationships with Brinks in Delaware and Texas, and so we can help you set up the account and we can just drop ship it there, no problem. But by default, you're going to take the money. We're not going to hold or you're going to take the metal. We're not going to hold either. So you're going to take possession of it. And how that works is basically you'd send a wire. Once we agree upon the purchase price and everything, we ship the metal. It's fully insured until you sign for it and take custody of it. And then it's get it and forget it. If you ever want to
mhm,
sell it back, like I said, we guarantee buyback. So you call us, liquidate
mhm,
it, whatever the market value is. We'll send you prepaid shipping and insurance to get it back to our wholesaler. So,
mhm.
but yeah, but it's going to go directly to you.
Yeah. And shipping metal is very safe for anybody who's listening to this who doesn't know. I've actually seen up to this is my biggest deal. You've obviously seen way more than this probably, but I've seen, 20, $30,000 and
Oh yeah.
a flat rate box, and with signature on delivery. So shipping metals is very safe, but always get the insurance would be my
Yeah,
recommendation.
and we cover all that. So we cover the shipping insurance, and you're right, it's incredibly safe. Nothing says gold in here. It doesn't have our return
Mhm.
address. Thor Metals Group. Like in fact, I got about $60,000 in silver personally, and the return address was a tile. They made up a tile company, to make so people would understand why it's so heavy, because it's silver, right? So
Mhm.
again, it's a
Really
very
smart.
it's very smart. Yeah. So it's a very discreet transaction. Nobody knows what it is. And it's discreet also from a reporting standpoint. So if you're acquiring like Eagles, Maple Leafs, Britannias, we don't have to submit a 1099 on that purchase to the government. Now, I'm not a tax professional. I'm not telling anybody to cheat the IRS. I'm just saying our obligation is not to report it, or liquidating it. We don't have to send those
Mhm.
1099s. So it is a people like that. People like the way it's treated.
I'm glad you mentioned that because one of the big things in the conservative community is secrecy. I don't know why. And everybody's like, I don't want anyone to know what guns I have, what silver I have, what gold, especially in silver and gold. So it's very, I'm really glad that you mentioned that because basically, I think a lot of people who buy with credit cards or something like that online, I mean, it seems like to me that if you go through like a Thor's metal group, that's going to be um, less noticeable on a credit card statement or a wire statement than it is to buy from JM Bullion or at
Oh,
Max or SD
big
Bullion or
time.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of different reasons. From the fact of just the size, like JM Bullion's owned by Amark, which is a publicly traded company, so they have records and stuff. When you deal with us, again, we're not gonna follow like we're gonna follow the laws, obviously, but you're sending a wire to Thor Metals Group, and that's it. What you get is your business. I mean, you're obviously gonna get a confirmation and stuff from us, but that's between me and you, and no one
Mhm.
else needs to know
Yeah,
about it.
sure.
So it's
Yeah.
nice, and you can do, we're talking, God, up to $7 million. I had a client that did 4.5 million in silver just very recently. So I mean, it's not like at any amount you blanch and say, okay, well now we got to handle it this way. It's like it's handled the same way as if you did 4,500. It's nice that way. And if you've ever tried to take money out of a bank, man, if you try to take over like 2 grand, they make it look like you're like part of the cartel. It's like
Oh, yeah.
they question you and stuff. So it's really nice to have the fluidity and the liquidity of that.
I've been denied at the bank for purchases as simple as taking out seven. I think the specific time I was trying to take 7,000 out in cash. The bank
Yeah,
literally looks at me and says, "We don't have that much cash on hand to
that's
give you,
it's happened to me. Yeah, I mean, isn't
but
that
you can
crazy?
have 10 grand in your pocket and a 5 ounce gold bar or whatever." I
I
mean,
know.
just right there. So yeah.
Yeah,
Um, I just got a couple more questions for you. We've been doing this for about an hour. It's been really great. And again, I really appreciate you coming on. This has been awesome. It's went well.
yeah.
So my last two questions, I'll just start with the first one. What is crypto's correlation with metals, and what is the future of metals in the digital age? I know that's kind of a loaded question.
No, those are really good questions. So listen, crypto is a really hot button with me because I really feel this is my opinion here, but this is what I
Mhm.
feel occurred. Okay. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, nobody wants you invested in gold and silver, but for reasons that are good for you, because
Right. Sure.
God knows central banks are buying it, So anyways, they don't want you invested in it. Now, as things got more and more irresponsible, as we amassed more and more debt and printed more and more money, the powers that be realized that people were starting to question holding their wealth in dollars, and they were going to start looking for alternatives, gold and silver being the most natural choice, right? And so it's funny that right around that time that it was reaching that almost the straw that broke the camel's back, then some Japanese guy in Loma Linda develops this white paper for this world changing thing. So, anyways,
Mhm.
it just seems pretty coincidental. So my whole thing with crypto is this: I know a lot of people have made a lot of money in it. All right, I know there's probably a lot of money to be made in it. that doesn't make it a good or sound investment. A lot of people made money at a casino, I mean, hey, the guys that run pump and dump scams, they have to own that pump and dump. They have to own that stock to pump it before they dump it. So my point is look at, I don't know, maybe crypto will catch on and never go away. Maybe it will be like tulip mania in the Netherlands and we won't be talking about it in 50 years. But here's the deal. It should not be marketed as digital gold. It's mismarketed as like the new gold, or it only has one thing in common, and that is it cannot be printed and it's borderless, because it's a global thing. That's the only thing it has in common with gold, because gold is conservative and it protects. Crypto is greedy and you're trying to get rich. Gold has a 5,000-year track record. Crypto doesn't even have a 20-year track record, and I can go on and on. So my bugaboo with crypto is, don't use the funds that you would use for gold for crypto, because if you're looking to protect a nest egg, that's the worst thing. I mean, shoot, Bitcoin goes up and down 60% in the course of a year. Gold has never gone down more than 12% in a year in the last 50 years. So it's like, look at, just use the right money, and the right money is money you gamble with, because it's a very speculative thing. And then, to cover your last question as a corollary is, look at, I think we are going digital. Okay. I don't think that we're going to regress to using gold coins at the country store, but what I do believe, and what influences my belief, is the Chinese central bank, the Russian central bank, JP Morgan, Bank of America, all the institutional investors and central banks, they're not stockpiling Bitcoin, they're stockpiling gold and silver. So what I do believe is gold and silver is always going to have a seat at the table. All right. So we're going to go digital. There's going to be some sort of a digital currency and some sort of a digital system, but gold and silver will always be connected with it. It's always has and always will. I mean, if we have not found a better measuring stick of value in 5,000 years, we're not going to find one. So that's my opinion. And so if people are worried, like, well, what happens if it goes digital? Well, guess what? Then there's going to be a calculator online that says, hey, an ounce of gold is worth so many digital tokens. So whatever the currency system is, whatever we move to, it's going to always have, value. Gold and silver will always have value in it.
Yeah. And you could get into a 3 to 4 hour conversation as far as fiat currency. We don't really have time for that today, but fiat currency, its correlation to different fiat currencies that's went through, even within the last 100 years. A lot of people don't know that the American dollar has changed, and, but one thing with the cryptos I definitely agree with, obviously we would have all invested in Bitcoin if we knew. Everyone, But there is a lot of scams. I mean, it was like, what, a week or two ago, there was that one with the Hawk Tua girl or something came out with her own digital coin, like ripped people off for hundreds of millions or something crazy. I can't remember what it all was.
It's 50 million. I mean, look at when you have something called Fart Coin with $1 billion market cap, that either the end of the world is upon us or something. But I mean, that's just wild. But that's the thing. That should tell you, why do people like crypto so much? Why is crypto fun? Because it's just gambling wrapped up in a different wrapping paper. And gambling's fun. People like to gamble, right? So hey, I think there's money to be made in crypto. If you know what you're doing, God bless. But make sure, number one, you know what you're doing. And even if you don't, make sure you're using money that you can afford to lose. Just use the right money. Sure. But if it's your nest egg, if it's your IRA, if it's your retirement, if it's money that you can't afford to lose, then stick with things that are going to be there and always have value. And that's the big thing.
Yeah, sure. So one last question here. Well, I got two last ones, but just one that may take a little time here. What is the biggest problem with the economy from your point of view? That's a tough one. I should have emailed that one over before.
No, it's a good question. I think the biggest problem with the economy is as follows. I think that it's been good for so long here in America that we do not have any sort of an appetite or threshold for pain or pulling up our bootstraps and having any sort of recession or tough times. I think we become weak, right? You had the Great Depression generation, you had the World War II generation, and then you had the baby boomers that learned from those. But now we got like the Generation Z, and if you tell them there's a 40-hour work week, they think they're going to a concentration camp. I mean, we've had it good for so freaking long here that we just have absolutely no room to ever sacrifice or go through some of the things that we're going to need to go through to make up for some of the irresponsible actions that we've done, be it printing the money we've printed, be it going into the debt that we've gone into, or be it, what's driven the stock market the last 15 years. Because I got news for you, man. This wasn't the second coming of the Industrial Revolution, but this is the biggest bull run in stock market history. So what's been driving it? It's been interest rate manipulation, quantitative easing, money printing, all of these things. And so what comes up must come down. If it's not organic, then it's going to come down. And we literally do not have any, we have no appetite for dealing with any sort of sacrifice. We're not willing, because like I said, it's been good for so long. So to answer your question, the biggest problem facing our economy right now is that the problems that were inherent in the economy that caused the '08 crash are still there, and they've gotten bigger because after the '08 crash, Obama did not let the banks take accountability because the banks should have failed. They should have failed for being greedy and doing what they did, but instead he bailed them out. And guess what? They've just gotten greedier. Now there's more derivatives out there than ever before. So anyways, it's like we just kept pushing off the consequence, the full consequence that we should have felt in '08, because there's no consequence because you had a disappointing fidelity statement for freaking 2 years. That's not a consequence.
Yeah.
No one swan dive out of a building because of that. But we kept pushing off this consequence, and it's just gotten bigger and bigger, and it'll be a mushroom cloud. And I think that when that mushroom cloud hits, it's going to be significant. So the problem facing the economy is the fact that we haven't paid the piper for going on 15 years. Exactly. There you go.
Yeah. And the thing, I'll add one little annotation here to the Obama thing. Basically, from my perspective, people still lost their homes in the housing crisis, but the bank got paid for those homes.
Yeah.
They got paid, but the people were still homeless. How do you
You
get
got
paid?
it, man.
How in the heck do you get paid for houses, but the people are still the banks cleaned house. The banks
No,
cleaned house.
did anyone have to return their bonuses for, because all those years, that it wasn't a 1 year thing. So did they have to return the freaking $40 million in bonuses that they made when their banks were cleaning house, like you said? I mean, no, but the houses were lost. Americans suffered, but they didn't. They got bailed out. Everyone got bailed out. I mean, I think one guy went to prison. It's crazy.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
right. One guy. Yeah, and you can watch that the ending of they made a movie about it
The
with
Big
Kristen
Short.
Bell. Yeah, The Big Short. I couldn't think of it, but yeah, it was like one or maybe two guys. Maybe it wasn't very many. So I'm going to share a quote from our time here that I really like. I'm a big quote guy. I'm gonna write this down. It'll have your name beside it. A big enough wave will sink all boats. That is an awesome quote, and um, hopefully, hopefully it doesn't sink mine because I got silver and gold at the house. But I really appreciate you being on, Mr. Thor. And would you be willing to come back on maybe later on, a couple months from now or
Absolutely.
something? Yeah,
Absolutely.
awesome.
I appreciate, it was a great conversation. I appreciate talking to you. And I think that the people that listen to your podcast are my people. These are the people that, are responsible and acquire gold and silver, including yourself. So it's been a pleasure, and I appreciate you having me on. So, it's been a good opportunity to just kind of spread the gospel.
Yeah, yes, sir. And have your team, after this is over, or you or your team, whoever you have, send me links to your website, any pictures that you would like. I like to do like a little slideshow at the end, sometimes in the
Yeah.
beginning, but just whatever. And feel free to plug away now for anything that you've got to sell or etc.
Yeah, I mean, so listen, if anything sounded interesting in what I did, if you have an IRA and you're in stocks and you think gold and silver might be a better option, and you just want to learn more, you can go on our website, www.thormetalsgroup.com. There's a section where you can fill out, we'll send you a prospectus, you can set up an appointment, and there's also a phone number there as well. So that would be your best shot there. And then, hey, the firm takes on the personality of the owner. And so I'm a very low pressure guy, and my brokers are very low pressure too. We're more teachers than anything. So again, you don't have to commit to it. You don't even have to be sure about it. But if anything was interesting, then I would suggest you at least take the steps to learn about it, because never hurts to be educated, you know, it never hurts to understand the option better. So again, so our website is www.thormetalsgroup.com. And then that's going to give you, you know, the best phone number, going to give you a form to fill out if you want some booklets and prospectuses, and it will give you a roadmap as to, you know, where to go from here.
Awesome. All right, Mr. Thor, I really appreciate you. I appreciate your team. I appreciate your time, and I may follow up through email with another date, maybe here in a couple months. I got a trip to Egypt here pretty soon. I got a few other guys coming on, so yeah, I'll definitely send you a copy of this once I have it all in post.
Awesome. I really appreciate you having me on, and it's been a pleasure, and I look forward to hopefully talking to you again soon when you get back from Egypt.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Y'all have a good day now.